Picture this. I'm standing in the middle of a crowded living room, the kind of place where every corner holds a story, and I'm clutching a half-empty wine glass like it's my anchor. My name's Elaine, and at 41, I've settled into a life that looks pretty picture-perfect from the outside. Married to Derek, my rock. For over a decade now, we've built something steady, something safe. But if I'm honest, the edges of our days have started to blur into a kind of comfortable monotony. We're not unhappy, not by a long shot, just predictable. Derek's in his mid-40s, a man who carries the weight of responsibility like it's second nature. He's hardworking, always has been, and he's got this quiet control about him, like he's always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But then there's his humor, dry as a desert, slipping out when you least expect it, leaving you chuckling before you even realize why. I've seen it catch friends off guard more times than I can count, and it's one of the things I still adore about him. Tonight, though, we're not in our usual quiet bubble. We're at a birthday bash for a mutual friend, packed into a cozy suburban house that feels like it's bursting at the seams with life. It's a chilly autumn night, the kind where the air bites just enough to remind you winter's creeping in. Inside, it's a different world. The living room is a chaotic symphony of sound and scent. Laughter bouncing off the walls, the sharp clink of beer bottles meeting in toasts, wine glasses catching the dim light as they're raised again and again. There's a lingering sweetness of birthday cake in the air, undercut by the faint, acrid whiff of cigarette smoke, drifting in from the patio where a few brave souls huddle against the cold. Conversations overlap in a messy hum, snippets of chatter about work gripes, kids' latest antics, and half-remembered stories from years gone by. It's the kind of night where everyone's a little louder, a little looser, and I can feel the energy buzzing through the room like a live wire. I'm not usually one to get swept up in this kind of thing. Derek and I were more the type to hang back, sip our drinks, and watch the chaos unfold. But tonight, there's something different stirring in the air, something I can't quite put my finger on. I'm dressed in a simple black dress, nothing flashy, with a shawl draped over my shoulders to fend off the occasional draft sneaking through the house. I feel comfortable enough, but there's this nagging sense of being slightly out of step with the carefree crowd around me. People are letting go in a way I'm not sure I remember how to, their laughter sharper, their gestures bigger. I catch sight of familiar faces, including Tommy, a taxi driver who's driven us home a few times before. He's a tall, quiet guy, always polite, with a knack for knowing when to keep the conversation light. But right now, my attention isn't on Tommy or the rest of the crowd. It's on the pulse of the party as it hits its peak, right around midnight, and the whole place feels like it's vibrating with life. The music has been cranked up, a playlist of 80s hits blasting through a Bluetooth speaker perched precariously on a side table. Sweet Child O' Mine is tearing through the air, and the room is a wild blur of dancing and chatter. People are swaying, some offbeat, others just throwing their hands up like they've forgotten how to care. The energy is infectious, but I'm still on the edges, watching it all unfold with that half-empty glass still in my hand. My eyes find Derek across the room, and I can't help but do a double take. He's not himself tonight, not by a long shot. He's had way more to drink than I've seen in years, his tie hanging loose around his neck like a forgotten noose, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, showing off forearms I don't often see exposed in public. He's standing in the middle of a small circle of friends, trying to tell a story, but he's stumbling over his words, his gestures too big, too sloppy. Every few seconds he sways on his feet, catching himself just before he tips over. Laughter erupts from the group, but I'm not sure if it's at the story or at him. I feel this odd mix of amusement and concern bubbling up inside me. Derek, the man who's always got it together, who can walk into any room and own it with that quiet confidence, is a mess right now. It's almost funny, but there's a pang in my chest too. This isn't him, and I'm not used to seeing him so unguarded, so out of control. I glance at the clock on the wall, the hands ticking past midnight, and I know it's time to call it a night. The weight of the late hour presses down on me, and I can feel the exhaustion creeping into my bones. More than that, I know Derek needs to get home before he does something he'll regret in the morning, or before he can't stand up at all. I set my glass down on a nearby table, the wine long since gone warm, and weave my way through the crowd toward him. The noise is deafening up close, the bass of the music thumping in my chest, but I manage to catch his eye. He gives me a lopsided grin, like he's in on some joke I don't get, and I shake my head with a small smile of my own. "Come on, let's get out of here," I say, loud enough to cut through the din. He doesn't argue, just nods and lets me guide him toward the door, one hand on his arm to steady him as we go. Stepping outside is like stepping into a different world. The cold air hits me hard, slicing through the warmth I'd gotten used to inside, and I pull my shawl tighter around my shoulders. Derek stumbles a bit on the porch steps, his weight leaning into me more than I expect, and I brace myself to keep us both upright. The muffled thump of the music fades behind us as the door swings shut, replaced by the quiet of the night, crickets chirping somewhere in the distance, the occasional rustle of leaves skittering across the pavement. I fish my phone out of my purse with one hand, still steadying Derek with the other, and call for a taxi. He mumbles something incoherent, his head lolling toward my shoulder, and then, out of the blue, he pulls me into a tight, clumsy hug right there on the sidewalk. His breath is warm against my ear, reeking of whiskey, and he slurs out, "If I pass out, do whatever you want. Even with the first guy you see, just tell me about it later." I laugh it off, a nervous chuckle escaping my lips, and pat his back like it's just another of his bad jokes. He's drunk, I tell myself. He doesn't mean it. But the words stick, lingering in the back of my mind like a splinter I can't quite pull out. It doesn't take long for the taxi to pull up, its headlights cutting through the dark like a beacon. I squint against the glare and feel a flicker of recognition as I spot the driver. It's Tommy, the same guy who's driven us home before. He steps out to help, and I take a moment to really look at him this time. He's got broad shoulders that seem to fill the space around him, a quiet strength in the way he moves. His hands grip the steering wheel with a calm confidence when he gets back in, like he's done this 1,000 times and could do it blindfolded. There's a faint scent of pine air freshener hanging in the car, mixing with the leather of the seats, and it's oddly comforting. Tommy doesn't say much as he helps me maneuver Derek into the back seat, where he immediately slumps against the window, his soft snores starting up almost instantly. I hesitate for a split second before sliding into the front passenger seat instead of the back. I don't know why I do it. Maybe it's just easier to talk to Tommy from here, or maybe it's something else I'm not ready to name. Either way, the decision feels heavier than it should. We pull away from the curb, the hum of the engine filling the silence as we glide through the dimly lit streets. The world outside is a blur of streetlights and shadowed houses, the occasional flicker of a TV screen visible through a window. Inside the car, though, the air feels thick, oppressive almost, broken only by the rhythmic sound of Derek's breathing behind me. I stare out the windshield, trying to focus on the road, but my mind keeps drifting back to what Derek said outside the party. Those slurred words replay in my head, over and over, like a broken record I can't turn off. I'd brushed them aside as nonsense at the time, just the ramblings of a man who'd had too much to drink. But now, in the quiet of this taxi, they're stirring something inside me. Something restless, something I don't want to look at too closely. My fingers fidget with the edge of my shawl, twisting the fabric as if that'll untangle the mess of thoughts in my head. Then, out of nowhere, Tommy's voice cuts through the silence, deep and steady, like a stone dropping into still water. That's the most interesting thing I've heard from a passenger all year. My heart skips a beat, a jolt of heat rushing to my cheeks. He must have overheard Derek's comment earlier, maybe when we were getting into the car. I turn my head just enough to catch his profile, the faint glow of the dashboard lights outlining the hard lines of his jaw. I'm embarrassed, mortified even, that he heard something so personal, so ridiculous. But there's something else there too, a strange thrill, a flicker of something dangerous that I can't quite name. I force myself to look away, out the window again, as the streetlights streak by in a blur. My mind is racing, but the rest of the ride passes in a heavy, suffocating silence. Tommy doesn't say another word, and I'm grateful for it, because I don't trust myself to respond without betraying the storm brewing inside me. The tension in the car is thicker now, a palpable weight pressing down on my chest, making every breath feel like a conscious effort. I sit rigid in the front seat, my hands clenched tight in my lap, the fabric of my dress bunched under my fingers. I can't bring myself to glance at Tommy, not even for a second, because I'm afraid of what I might see in his eyes, or what he might see in mine. Every now and then I steal a quick look at Derek in the back through the rearview mirror. He's still out cold, his head resting against the window, his face smoothed out in sleep, completely oblivious to the chaos swirling in my head. Seeing him like that, so peaceful and unaware, sends a sharp pang of guilt slicing through me. He trusts me, always has, and here I am, wrestling with thoughts I shouldn't be having. But beneath that guilt, there's something else, a defiant, almost reckless satisfaction that I can't shake, no matter how hard I try. It's like a tiny flame flickering in the dark corners of my mind, daring me to let it grow. I don't know where it's coming from, and that scares me more than I'd like to admit. My heart is pounding so hard, I'm sure Tommy can hear it over the hum of the engine. It's a relentless drumbeat in my chest, each thump echoing the turmoil I'm trying to suppress. My skin still feels warm, flushed from the intensity of the moment, from the memory of Tommy's words and the way they landed like a spark on dry tinder. I can't seem to catch my breath properly. It keeps hitching in my throat, shallow and uneven, as I struggle to process what I've done, what I've allowed myself to feel, even if just for a fleeting second. I press my lips together, trying to steady myself, but the air in the car feels too close, too charged, like it's holding on to every unspoken thought. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the car slows to a stop. I glance out the window and see the familiar outline of our house, a modest, two-story place that's always felt like a sanctuary. The porch light flickers weakly in the dark, casting a dim, uneven glow across the front steps. It's a sight that usually brings me comfort, but tonight, it just looks cold and distant. Tommy cuts the engine, and the sudden silence is jarring, amplifying the sound of my own uneven breathing. He gets out without a word, moving to the back to help with Derek. I sit there for a moment, frozen, before forcing myself to open the door and step into the cool night air. It bites at my skin, a sharp contrast to the heat still lingering on my cheeks, and I wrap my shawl tighter around me, as if it can shield me from more than just the chill. Tommy's movements are all business as he helps me get Derek out of the back seat. He's professional, detached, like nothing out of the ordinary happened during that ride. Like he didn't just hear something that shifted the ground beneath my feet. Derek's weight is heavy against me, his arms slung over my shoulder as we half drag, half carry him toward the house. I fumble with my keys at the door, the metal cold and slick against my trembling fingers. It takes me a couple of tries to get the lock to turn, my hands unsteady, my mind still reeling. Finally, the door swings open, and we stumble inside, the familiar creak of the floorboards underfoot, grounding me just enough to keep going. I manage to get Derek to the living room, easing him down onto the worn leather couch that's been a fixture in our home for years. He mumbles something incoherent as his head hits the cushion, but he doesn't stand there for a moment, frozen in the dim light of our living room, watching Derek sprawled out on the couch. His chest rises and falls unevenly, a faint snore escaping his lips every few breaths. The silence in the house is heavy, almost oppressive, broken only by the soft creak of the floorboards as I shift my weight. My mind is a tangled mess, a storm of guilt and confusion swirling inside me after everything that's happened tonight. I can still feel the weight of Tommy's words from the car, that unexpected comment that lit something dangerous in me. And now, standing here, I'm faced with the reality of what I've been wrestling with. My hands are still trembling as I pull my shawl off and drape it over the arm of a nearby chair, the fabric slipping through my fingers like water. I can't shake the feeling that I've crossed some invisible line, even if it's just in my thoughts, and now I'm teetering on the edge of something I can't control. I hear a soft groan from the couch, and my heart skips a beat. Derek stirs, his body shifting slightly under the throw blanket I'd tossed over him moments ago. His eyes flutter open, just for a second, before half closing again, like he's caught somewhere between sleep and waking. The faint glow from the lamp in the corner casts jagged shadows across his face, highlighting the lines of exhaustion etched into his skin. I notice the faint stubble along his jaw, rough and uneven, a stark reminder of how out of sorts he is tonight. His brow furrows as he tries to focus, his gaze drifting toward me, though I'm not sure he even sees me properly. My pulse quickens, hammering in my chest so hard it feels like it might break through. This is it. The moment I've been dreading, or maybe, deep down, the moment I've been waiting for. The air feels thick, charged with everything I've been holding inside, and I know I can't keep it buried any longer. I take a step closer, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, and lower myself to the edge of the coffee table just in front of the couch. I'm so close now that I can smell the lingering whiskey on his breath, mixed with the familiar scent of his cologne that's faded over the hours. My hands grip the edge of the table, knuckles whitening as I try to steady myself. My voice comes out barely above a whisper, raw and unsteady, as I lean in toward him. I did what you said. And I liked it. The words hang in the air, each one heavier than the last, like stones dropping into a still pond. They carry the weight of a confession I didn't even fully understand until I spoke them aloud. My throat tightens as I watch his face, searching for any sign of recognition, any hint that he understands what I'm admitting to. Did I really just say that? Did I just lay bare the thing I've been fighting to ignore since we left the party? Derek's expression shifts, but it's not what I expect. There's a flicker of confusion in his hazy eyes, his brow creasing deeper, as if he's trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces. Then, just as quickly, his face slackens again, the confusion melting into something unreadable. Something I can't decipher through the fog of his intoxication. Does he even remember what he said to me outside the party? Those slurred words that set this whole spiral in motion? Does he have any idea what I'm talking about now, or is he too far gone to grasp the gravity of this moment? My breath catches in my chest, a sharp, painful hitch, as I wait for him to say something, anything. My hands are shaking now, gripping the edge of the table so hard I'm sure I'll leave marks in the wood. Every nerve in my body is on edge, stretched taut like a wire about to snap. The silence that follows is suffocating, a void that seems to swallow every other sound in the room. The only thing I can hear is the relentless ticking of the old wall clock hanging near the hallway, each second dragging on like an eternity. As the first light of dawn creeps through the living room curtains, I'm still here, perched on the edge of the couch, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on me like a heavy fog. Derek's beside me now, snoring softly again, his face relaxed in a way that almost makes me envious. I've got a cup of cold coffee in my hands, something I brewed hours ago in a desperate bid to keep myself awake, to keep my mind from spiraling too far into the dark corners it's been wandering. The bitter taste lingers on my tongue as I take another sip, not because I want it, but because it's something to do, something to anchor me in this quiet, surreal moment. The house is still, unnaturally so, after the chaos of the night. I can hear the faint chirping of birds outside, their early morning songs cutting through the silence like tiny, sharp reminders that the world is waking up, moving on, even if I'm not sure I can. There's a distant hum too, the sound of a neighbor's car starting up, probably someone heading off to an early shift, completely unaware of the storm that's been raging in my head. This house, this space that's always been my safe haven, feels both familiar and foreign right now. The worn leather of the couch under me, the faded rug beneath my feet, the family photos on the mantel, all of it looks the same, but it's like I'm seeing it through a distorted lens, like I've brought something back with me from that night that doesn't belong here. I let my gaze drift to Derek, his chest rising and falling with each uneven breath. He's oblivious to the confession I whispered just hours ago, to the raw, jagged truth I let spill out in a moment of reckless honesty. And sitting here now, with the pale light painting soft streaks across the room, I'm forced to face something I've been dodging since the moment I made my choice. I don't regret what I did with Tommy. I should. I know I should. Every rational part of me screams that I've betrayed the man lying next to me, the man who's been my partner, my constant, for over a decade. But the truth is, I don't feel the remorse I expected. There's guilt, sure, a gnawing little thing that tugs at the edges of my conscience, whispering reminders of the vows I made, the life we've built. But it's drowned out by something louder, something fiercer, a sense of liberation I didn't even know I was craving. It's like I've reclaimed a piece of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost, a part of me that got buried under years of routine, of predictability, of being the steady, dependable Elaine. What happened with Tommy, brief and charged as it was, woke something up in me, something wild and unapologetic, and I can't bring myself to wish it away, no matter how much I know I should. I keep replaying Derek's drunken words from outside the party, those slurred, careless syllables that planted a seed I couldn't uproot. Do whatever you want. Even with the first guy you see, just tell me about it later. Did he mean it, even a little? Was it some subconscious permission slipping out in a moment of vulnerability? A crack in the polished facade of our marriage that I latched onto like a lifeline? Or was it nothing at all? Just the nonsense of a man too far gone on whiskey to know what he was saying? I turn the question over in my mind like a stone, examining every angle. But I can't find an answer that sits right. Part of me wants to believe it was a green light, a twisted kind of blessing that absolves me, at least in some small way. But another part knows that's just me trying to justify what I've done, to ease the weight of my own choices. I glance at Derek again, his face so peaceful in sleep, and I know I won't bring it up when he's sober. Not yet, maybe not ever. I can't predict how he'd react, whether he'd laugh it off as a forgotten joke or look at me with something worse. Disappointment. So, for now, I choose silence, letting the unspoken words linger in the quiet room as I watch the morning light gently creep across his face. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.